So this episode is kind of less about getting things done and doing metal work as it is kind of setting the stage for the next thing that we're doing, which is working on the rear end. So part of what you should maybe be thinking about when you're working on the rear end, if it's like a rear apron work or fender work or on the deck lid, is trying to get everything back together. So in this episode, that's mostly what we're doing is we're going to try and get the rear deck lid on. We're going to try and get the rear fenders on, which is a whole other thing as well. And you'll see too that I removed the rear apron. So just to kind of go in order of how I was thinking we were going to do things is what I wanted to do first was remove that rear apron. And the point of that was that, well, for one, it was in bad shape. And I think I realized as I was taking it off how bad of shape it was in. There was a lot of filler and a lot of damage to it. And what I ended up doing and choosing to do was do a removable apron. And the reason why you might want to do a removable apron, so that's an apron that will come on and off. You can put it on and off sort of thing. So usually they're on there and they're welded on and you can't take them off. One of the reasons why you might want to do that is for when you're pulling motors and things like that. It just makes it a lot more convenient and easy for getting that motor out, because if you have that rear apron out, it all just comes out a lot easier. The motor, that is, it comes out easier. So as I was working on that rear apron and realizing that it was in bad shape, I kind of realized that I probably wasn't going to reuse it. So even though I wasn't going to reuse it, I did still want to take it off carefully, because I think you still want to take things off carefully in case there's metal underneath that can be reused or things are in better shape than you initially thought. That never happens, by the way. It's always in way worse shape. But just I still wanted to take it off carefully just in case, I decided I wanted to reuse things or maybe just keep that rear apron as a just in case sort of thing. But really what ended up happening was I pitched the rear apron, I got a new one, and we made it removable, and it was awesome. It works out great. I love that that piece can come on and off now. The other thing you'll see is that I am definitely in Canada. I think I was working on this in February, and I was at the point where I needed to get my fenders out to start sort of fitting them on the body so that we can move forward. Because I believe that when you are working on sheet metal, you need to have your pieces all together to make sure that they all fit together. That's kind of like you can think that you can do it without it, but I think you're going to set yourself up to maybe have a bad time if you're not fitting things. And by fitting things, I mean you need the fenders on, even when you're working on the rear apron, even when you're working on the deck lid, all that sort of stuff. Well, maybe not the deck lid, but you get my point, is you really want everything on so that as you're working, things will shift, things will move, and you just have to have it all together just to make sure that everything's right. But just getting back to the fenders, when I got this project car, the fenders on them were like a fiberglass kind of Baja style, and I knew that I didn't want that. I don't like that style. If they were fiberglass and looked original, fine, we'll work with that. But they were like kind of flared out. And I didn't like that. And so I knew that I was going to need some new fenders. And what actually ended up happening, as happens when you are working on Volkswagens and project cars and things like that, I did actually end up finding a parts car. A neighbor had one. It was really good shape. I paid them a couple $1,000 for it. And I actually ended up using a ton of parts from it for this build. So it ended up being worth the investment. Because actually what ended up happening is I used every single fender from the parts car, because as it turned out on this car that I'm working on, the Helen Wheels car, none of her fenders were worthy of using. And you'll see that later on. It did cause some frustration, especially on the front end. So those blue fiberglass fenders that were on the rear end, we ended up, well, I still have them, but we're not good. We ended up not using them for this project. I got the white ones that you see that I'm going to put on. Those were from another project car that I'm working on currently. Currently I'm working on that car now. And if you want to go check that out, that is on my Instagram. But, yeah, so get your fenders on, get everything lined up, get the deck lid on, and then you can start piecing things together. And one thing you may want to just be prepared for is if you're doing a lot of back end work and things like that, just be prepared to put those fenders on and off like 1,000 times. Because you'll put them on, you'll line things up, you'll got to take them off. Because I had to not only replace the rear apron, but I don't know what they're called. I call them the wing pieces, which can get a little bit confusing because I think in the UK they call what we call the fenders, they call wings, I think. But it's the wing piece that the fender actually sort of attaches to. So back, it's where the rear apron is and the fender comes. I just call them the wing pieces. And both of them on both sides of the engine compartment needed to be replaced. And that's why you want to get your fenders back on, because all that needs to work together, like your rear apron, your fender, the deck lid, and how it sits on that part. So there's a lot happening there that you have to consider, which is why I recommend getting all your pieces on there before you even do any welding or even any cutting. You just have to get a good picture of what's happening. So that's it for this episode. And just as a reminder, I'm here weekly. We release new episodes weekly of what we're doing, and we're going to take you all the way through metalwork, all the way through bodywork, all the way through assembly, and we'll get to the end eventually. So just keep coming back.